Welcome to the Reality Revolution. So this is my first time ever going live, and I'm just really excited today because this is the first day that my book is released, and this is it, the Reality Revolution. Worked on this for a very long time, and this book tells about my personal journey, but also many of the things that I discovered along the way. And I was excited to share it with everybody. And I wanted to answer any questions and interact with you guys as much as I possibly can. I love you guys so much. And it's always such a pleasure to share the stuff that I do on this channel. And I haven't had too many chances to interact with everybody. So hello, Vivian, and hello, Marcus and Alexandra. Thank you so much. And Shannon, OneAlien04. Tiana, that is great to have you. Marie, Mary Rose. Hey, Nikita, Snow One. It's good to see everybody. So I don't know how many of you have gotten a chance to read the book. Hey, Brian and Jan, Crystal, great to see you. So I don't know how many of you got a chance to see the book. Just to tell you a little bit about it. I'm like everybody else. I'm interacting in the world and starting to realize that my thoughts created reality, but I was at a very low point and a tough point when I went through this journey. And so I started to experiment and try pretty much everything. Thank you so much, Crystal. You're the best. I'm honored. You guys are all so awesome. So as I did this, I started to see some major shifts in my reality. I started to explore the idea of maneuvering through parallel realities. And as I did this research, I found lots of different authors and did some research in physics. And the stuff that I gained was so important to me. I felt an obligation almost to share it in many ways. I felt like if I went on with all this information that I had gathered, that I would have been kind of selfish. I'm somebody that loves to read and gather and research. I've been doing that my whole life. And so this book is a culmination of not just my journey, but all the stuff I've been learning. And I had to share it. So my goal with this is to find ways for you to shorten the time it takes to manifest when you create your reality. Everybody's on their own journey, and hopefully some of the stuff that I've been through can help you avoid some of the roadblocks and stumbling blocks that we all kind of go through. So if you guys have any questions, I will answer any questions that you might have. Hey, Sonia, Archangel Antonio. Yes, I agree. Feeling is the Secret is such an amazing book, and it resonates. It's something that you'd never forget. When you go back and think about it, it still resonates with me, and it was really fun to read that book. Thank you, Sharitha. That's so nice of you. So, yeah, the book here, I finished this kind of before I really started to delve into Neville Goddard, and you'll be surprised when you read it because a lot of it completely reflects the teachings of Neville Goddard. But I hadn't gone as depth. I had read Feeling is the Secret, and I do mention that. But when you're reading the book, this is my journey before Neville. So the amazing thing about Neville Goddard is it completely confirmed everything that I had learned along the way and made it easier and even more exciting, kind of adding some of the religious flavor to it and understanding of old texts, and it's brought a lot of stuff together. So I've really enjoyed that. Thank you, Soup Snakes. Appreciate that. Vivian S. is asking, how do you actually move into the other reality? That's what I have the most trouble with. So I love that question. That is a question I'm trying to answer. The big goal, if you wanted to nail it down with this book, was not how to just get somebody, how to manifest a coffee. I wanted to change a reality. I wanted to know the fastest, easiest way to maneuver into a different reality. And so I've tried to discuss that on many different levels. The bridge of incidence that Neville Goddard talks about is what we're doing when we're shifting into a reality. The bridge of incidence is all of those little parts of the play that our mind adds in to move into the other reality. So the more we're open to the idea that there are multiple realities that are going on at all times, as we've talked about on the channel, there is simultaneous time. And Neville Goddard confirms it. It's amazing. So many different authors and physicists confirm it, and I talk about it in the book. All of time exists at the same time. Sonia, thank you so much. All of time exists at the same time. So all of the realities exist at the same time. So the first thing we want to do is activate this reality. Go along with the idea that that reality, while it may be real, you're going to activate that reality in your reality field. So the first process is finding out what reality you want to actually move into. And then as you do it, it becomes like a Polaroid that slowly resolves as you maneuver and change your mindset, change your actions. Over a course of time, you'll move into that other reality. I've experimented with this, and there's lots of different facets to it. There's so many ways that you can get derailed, and I talk about that in the book. I talk about things that can come up, thought patterns that can come up that can derail you to move into that other reality. But the key is, in the book, as I discussed, for me, the biggest thing that really helped me to move and solidify that other reality is energy. I have several sections in the book where I talk about energy. But in addition, if you notice, there's some diagrams that talk about some different exercises. The bottom line is, if you can figure out a way to amplify your energy before you go into a meditational practice, I can compare yourself to the same as a quantum particle. And when you look at quantum particles under the electron microscope, when it jumps, it requires energy. And that's kind of what Cynthia Sue Larson talked about. She talked about this idea that when you do a quantum jump, you need energy to amplify your ability to move into it. So once I started doing that prior to my meditations, I started noticing big changes in my reality. The next major roadblock that I've noticed is that people start to see crazy stuff. When you move into another reality, you may actually have moved into a time stream where things are different. Objects are in different places, buildings are in different places. And so my first suggestion is to expect it and not make a big deal about it. Don't mention it to anybody. Just assume that is proof that you've moved into the other reality, and continue to see those as signs. And as you continue to do this slowly and carefully, by repeating these thought patterns, staying in the wish fulfilled, you'll start to see the reality. And that's kind of one of the best ways. But read the book, because I try to go through all of the different paths to that reality. Now, let's see. We had some other questions. A lot of people have been saying some stuff here. So let me see what else. If anybody has a question. How do you pull your astral body? Charles Ranciere says, how do you pull your astral body out of your physical body? As I stated before, I did astral travel on accident while walking with my physical body. Charles, that's a really good question. And there is, in my own experience with astral travel, it was hard. There's a book, 90-day program for astral travel that I read, and it's a set of exercises over 90 days. And I had a real hard time differentiating the energy part of my body to the regular part of my body. And so by doing that, by going through these exercises and becoming aware of the field outside of our body, you begin to become more aware of that astral body. In my own personal experience, most people that travel astrally will travel accidentally at first. In my own experience, one thing that really helped me was I started trying to do it without music. I'm always very tied into using a guided meditation or music, but while in silence, I was advised by a coach where I would try to listen to the astral. I would close my eyes, and I would always try to expect something, to see something, but I would listen as if the astral is in the distance, and then it would start coming to me, and I would hear this tone, and that tone would be proceeding right before the pop. And that has been one technique that I found one of the biggest things with astral travel is remembering everything that happens while you're in that astral situation. You want to make sure that you remember it. So I try to reaffirm with different affirmations and constantly try to reintegrate with my astral body when I have memories come in. That is the biggest thing. I think we all are traveling astrally all the time. What we're trying to do when we consciously astrally travel is do it while awake and be able to remember the experience. I could dedicate a whole other episode. I haven't done any episodes on astral travel, so I appreciate the question, and I promise we'll definitely go into that further. And once I started to do that, it's very powerful, and a lot of cool things have happened to me in the process. So it's worth trying to travel astrally, because I think there's some positive benefits from it. So let's see, we have any other questions? This is a God dream. I'm confused. How can we be experiencing same events as a collective if we are able to create our own reality? This is hard for me to wrap my head around. That is a great question. We're always wondering how much of the reality is ours. I believe, in my own opinion, and there is no way to verify this, collectively we are creating a pocket of reality within our own reality, which is kind of discussed in reality transurfing. All of those different, and everybody else is somebody that's becoming and awakening to God at the same time, creating their own pocket of reality. What's happening when we see other people around you, they're showing a reflection of you. They are all you on some level, and there is still a connection. You have some control over the events on some level, but it's kind of like, in my mind, a clockwork. So they're creating their reality, and I'm creating my reality, and we fit in like a clock. It's not that I'm manipulating them, they're manipulating me at the same time, and we fit in like a clock. What I have found in coaching is that if I coach, if you start to really follow the idea that the whole universe is just you, it will work against you. It's okay to be open to the fact that you are not alone in this universe. That mentality, even if it's true, will work against you. And even if this reality is universally just you, by assuming that and thinking that, there are programs built into the reality that will work against you in that regard. So the assumption itself can work against you, if that makes sense. Lots of questions. I promise I'll try to get to as many as we can here. Let me see what else we got here. Marcus Forsett. I'm trying to create meditations that force me to feel and imagine me completing income-producing activities that will help me build them in as habits, so I take action in reality. Is this possible? Marcus, first of all, thank you so much. And it is possible. The financial abundance meditation that I have is trying to do that. And there's so many different ways to go about doing that. When you're talking about feeling and imagining your income producing activities, there are a lot of different ways to do that. So you can do that through creating thoughts, creating situations. What I've tried to do in that meditation is tie your breath to the idea that you're breathing in abundance, and that you're breathing out abundance and breathing in income that increases. One of the primary spiritual paths, that's why I think that we encounter problems with money, or we are in a universe where money is a part of the exchange, is that money is very similar. I believe that money is God, that it's an energy. It's an energy just like love and God and all the things that we're interacting with. And our process of becoming prosperous is the interaction with these energies and the way that we think. And so there's lots of different ways to do that. One of the first things is you probably have blocks built in that stop you from believing it. Go to the first part and see what blocks that you have that are stopping you from building these income producing activities and habits. And then start to build in some activities that create new habits. Consciously create habits at the beginning until they become habitual. Just your conscious awareness of it is great. Don't give up on it. Stick to it. It's one of those things, it's a lifelong learning. Even when I talk to millionaires, they're constantly learning about how to think about money, and it never ends. So continually be a student of prosperity, and prosperity will come to you in greater levels, in my own experience. I'd love to know what you guys think. I'm still a student. So let's see what else we got. What techniques do you have to amplify your own dielectric field, for example, prior to meditation? That is a great question. And in the book, if you get the book, I have illustrations. I have a set of exercises that I've experimented with over time. I'd like to do a video. I don't want to, part of me doesn't want to do it, but I might. I'll do a video showing you my exercise routine. It's kind of personal, but I do the 5 Tibetans, as I describe in there. I believe that when you start to study energy centers, that it's like they're vortexes. And the beginning process of the 5 Tibetans is when you spin around clockwise 21 times. That action just by itself gets the energies moving. Then the energies there's an abdominal exercise that's next that pulls the energy to the sacral. There's another exercise that pulls it to the solar plexus. There's another exercise that begins to move it to the heart. I do all of these things. I do about 21 of those. I do some shaking. I do some knocking on the door of life, some Qigong exercises to awaken the energy in my body, pulling in the energy, connecting my breath to the energy. I will hang upside down. That's part of one of the things I like to do as a part of my energy routine, if I can. And then I will do something called the Zen swing. It's pretty simple. If you can do it outside with barefoot in the ground at sunset or sunrise, it's even better. But when you start to feel the flow of energy in your body, you start to feel that electrical tingle when you shock things, when you touch it. Then when you do your meditation, that energy goes within. And there's something to it. When you travel astrally, there's a propulsion of energy by tying those exercises prior to the meditation. I've done my best, but you can always continue to add to your own arsenal and find something comfortable. I've also, as I talk about in the book, I use vibration machines. I've tried anything I possibly can to amp up my energy through my body by pulling energy in, and all of the things that I'm constantly experimenting, and that's what I'm talking about in the book a little bit. So let me see what else we got here. Next question. I've got so many. So if I miss any, I'm so sorry. Hey, Brian. Susan Spencer. Hey, Brian. You have so many great meditations. Do you recommend sticking with one meditation or switching around, or what? That's a good question. All of the meditations that I do, you can stick with one, starting with what do you want? In my experience, because I lose interest very quickly, I will do a meditation for a couple of days and then I'll want something more. A lot of times what you're seeing with the meditations I create for you are meditations I'm creating for myself as well. And so what I'm trying to do is, and I will very soon, maybe in the next month or so, have a training program where it's kind of like a P90X. What I've found is if you do certain meditations over a period of time, doing different meditations, kind of like a certain kind of energy meditations to begin with, then more meditations, then more reality meditations, and then moving on to different kinds, it's very powerful. So that's one example of how to do it, but there's no right answer. Let's see here. Uh-oh, I got a cough. Don't worry, I'm quarantined. Let's see here. Yes, the vibration machine, they use it in football. You stand on the machine and it vibrates, but I've used it to amplify my energy and it really works. Have you ever tried the microcosmic orbit? Can that help? Now, I do not know, Veronica, about the microcosmic orbit, so I'll definitely be looking that up. Let's see what else we got. Susan said to hop on one foot with your eyes closed. I definitely recommend yoga and balancing exercises. When you start focusing on balancing just a little bit, balancing your body, there's some kind of alignment that occurs when you practice balancing. I know you're probably joking, but yes, for sure. What else do we got here? Jasmine says, you've mentioned feeling what happened in the deaths of people who brought Christ consciousness, and in some of the moments I've experienced, I've felt photosynthesis, death, seeing the universe. Yes, Jasmine, absolutely. I've had similar experiences in my own life. oftentimes in meditations, it comes off like a vision. And I've had moments when I've seen the universe and that transcend like that, and I understand exactly what you're saying. Ascension and star seeds, my thoughts. I absolutely believe in ascension and star seeds. I see a pattern in all of that. I do think that it's funny, you find people that attach to the idea of the star seed and they put it as a part of their identity. I've talked to people that, hey, I'm Lemurian, and I just, I've always been, they start to add it, and it almost doesn't sound genuine. There's kind of a falsity to it. Like they seriously wanted to change their own identity, so they lashed onto an identity, which is Lemurian or whatever it is, Pleiadian. And so if that's helping you, then continue with it. And if you truly believe that, then I believe that. And I definitely think that there are people that are coming to this planet, wanderers, that are here to raise our vibration. There are people that I've met, like Brian Larson of Metaverse. I believe he is a wanderer. I don't know. But I do think that we are in a time where our planet's changing, and the entities are coming here to raise our vibration. There's no doubt about that. Ascension is super interesting. Ascension, for me personally, is just transcending to the next density. And I think we're all moving into, evolving into a higher energy being that, as Neville Goddard explains, is not excrementitious, which means, I guess, that we don't have to go to the bathroom, that we can travel quickly, that we have greater energy, that our thoughts become reality faster. It's really interesting, the coincidences, when you start to see the way that Neville Goddard describes the new age, the kind of being we will be in the new age, what Dolores Cannon describes as the shift to the higher density, what we see in the Law of One, where Ra is explaining after the harvest what beings are like when we move into the fourth density. So I absolutely feel like we're at the cusp of this. We might not see it. We might. It feels comic booky, like it could be like X-Men. We're seeing some huge major transformation, and absolutely could be what's going on right now. But in many ways, what I personally think what's happening is the Elohim, the gods, the greater universe, all the Logos, all of them greatly want us to move up to this higher density. But it's very much like us getting in a Lamborghini and never having driven before. And they're not going to just throw us the keys. They're going to teach us how to drive. We're learning about how our mind interacts with reality. We're learning how important it is to think lovingly. And as we learn these things, our powers will increase and we will move and ascend to higher densities. And that's my best explanation for it. But I'm always learning, and I'm totally fascinated by it. So Marcus asks a question, and thank you so much, Marcus. I've tried the Neville Goddard breathing technique a few times, but I never get the explosion feeling you speak of. I think that's common. I think that's all mental. You're not going to get the explosion as physical. It depends on how you breathe. In my own personal, when I do that, the technique, and for people that don't know, there's a technique that Neville Goddard teaches, and I do it in the explosion technique, where essentially you breathe and you get excited. It's almost orgasmic. And then there's an explosion. He describes it in a couple of different ways. In the most recent one that I found, he describes it as every atom in your body explodes. It's very similar to the quantum jump that's described by Cynthia Sue Larson. It's described. There's an explosion technique that's also described in reality transurfing. Clearly, there's something going on with this idea of the explosion. I started to first explore this if you check out my Big Bang meditation. But the idea is that our energy explodes when we look close at a microscope. When a sperm fertilizes an egg, there's an explosion of energy. There's an explosion of energy when you see the black hole or the sun get created. And so manifestations generally are like that. And so that explosion of energy is one aspect that may be a part changing realities. And so I think he's making us go to think about it mentally in that respect, to think about mentally the explosion outward of our thoughts. We're always bringing in and collecting in what's going on around us. And so we need to kind of change that to pushing out. And so that explosion technique is kind of coaching that. That's my experience with it. I've had some success with it, and I would totally love to know what anybody else thinks. We got lots of comments. Ryan, hey Brian, I had this crazy dream when I was falling asleep. I was feeling anxious and fearful, and then I heard myself tell myself, like my voice, I am always with you. And then I felt so calm. I've heard that so many times. I've heard people say that they've heard a voice saying, Christ is with you, God is with you, I am with you. It could be so many different things, but Ryan, that's a great thing. That's exciting that you had that. That's wonderful. Thank you, Naya, so much for the compliments. Viviana, is it possible for a copy of us from a different dimension to contact us? Why not? I do think anything's possible. I've had some weird interactions. What I would say is, if it does happen, I would almost think that our higher self would make the other person look as if it's not you. Maybe you both don't realize it. Your higher self is constantly trying to protect us from going insane as we maneuver through different realities. So I do think it's possible to consciously try to do it. I have done it in meditations where I have tried to create a collective space where I meet versions of myself. My biggest awakening that I ever had was when I imagined when my third eye opened up and I shrunk down, and I actually felt like I had gone in to my pineal gland. When I went in to my pineal gland, it was like a vast room, and I met multiple versions of myself from multiple different realities. As I did this more and more, it was like this was a place where I could go, and we all shared information. So maybe perhaps it wasn't happening inside of me, but I had created a place. So I think it's possible. Now, that could just be my imagination that I'm playing with, but I still got information from it. If you read Bert Goldman's book, I talk about that a little bit in my book, Quantum Jumping. He's when you read his meditations, he's exploring quantum jumping as a source of acquiring information. So you can imagine that George Washington is a parallel version of you. All of the people in the universe are. And so you can meet them and acquire information. The Warren Buffett version of you has information for you on how to think about money. So yes, I think that you can do that. I personally think that Napoleon Hill is exploring that idea when he talks about masterminds, but particularly he would have internal masterminds where he would talk to Abraham Lincoln or other people. So yes, you can do that. And even if it's not real, I think that it's an exercise that is helpful in solving problems and acquiring information. Let's see here. Goldie Mac says, have I heard of duality, being in the present moment, from speakers like J.K. Krishnamurti, Mooji, Eckhart Tolle, etc.? Goldie, absolutely. We are moving from a period of duality beyond that. When you look at quantum computers, the computers that we use now are zeros and ones. Quantum computers move beyond that. Once you start to break apart from the duality of the universe, then you start to see the real truth. You start to see the layers of it. But oftentimes the programming of third dimensional and third density reality is dualistic. We have the sun, we have the moon, we have females, we have males, we have light, we have dark. Everything can be broken up into dualities. And I totally recommend that you try to go through all of the dualities that you can think of and try to see the points between. And a huge learning for me, and one of the keys and the essence of moving into your higher chakras, to your higher mind, is to move beyond duality. We are naturally dualistic in so many ways. It's programmed into our genetics. But those higher beings that we talk about that are ascended are beyond those dualistic things that we see in the universe. It's in our political system. It's in everything. So if we can break beyond duality, then we can really start to flesh out the truth of this universe. We're just playing in a small little game because of the dualistic nature. All right. We got lots of cool. Metaverse, what's up, Brian? Love. Let's see what else we got here. Yes, I love Muji too. Muji's the man right now. Muji's got some great stuff. It's totally helped me out. Let's see. What else we got here? Jack J4 Call says, I feel lost since years and it feels like I never move forward. It's like my life is frozen in time and the little positive always gets joined by negative. No matter the focus, someone please help. All right. So what you're experiencing is so common. It's so normal. It's absolutely what we're all experiencing. Dr. Joe Dispenza does a fantastic job of this, describing the neurological reasons behind that. When you wake up in the morning, you have a set of programs that you do. You look at your phone, you go to the bathroom, you have certain emotions, things that you look at, and you start creating patterns every day. If you are experiencing the same Groundhog's Day reality every single day, it's because you're in a program and you're addicted to certain neurological conditions that happen. It may be surprising to you, but maybe you're addicted to your depression or your sadness, and there's so many different things. So what I recommend is really seriously looking at your overall day. Analyze it. When you wake up, try to break some of those initial habits that you have in the morning, some of the initial thought patterns that you have around certain things. And once you start to break those things, then you can break the habit of being yourself. You're absolutely right. You're on the right track by looking at your habits. That's something for me that was a big game changer, was because my mind is constantly racing and I'm pulling in on stuff. So I created a daily habit. And what I'm always doing is gathering information from anybody I meet, anybody that's successful, that is doing the things I want to do. I take everything that I possibly can and I analyze it. I bring it in. I try to add it into my morning routine. So if I talk to Aaron Doty and he does a certain thing, I will add that to my morning routine. Create a routine in the morning and you will end up breaking the habits that you're in right now. That's the best thing I can tell you. I try to give you kind of my routines in this book to give you a starting point. Eventually, you're going to create it for yourself. Absolutely. Let's see what else. What other questions do we have? Goldie Mac says, have you heard of monks in the Himalayas with extraordinary powers like teleporting and levitation? There was a book, I forgot, it was called Secrets of the East or something like that. Yes, I've absolutely heard of that. I'm very fascinated by what you read about coming out of the Himalayas, almost like there has been a spiritual evolution in that particular area, possibly due to the circumstances. When you listen to Sadhguru is also acknowledging the great contributions of the yogis in the Himalayas. All spirituality, including what's happening in the Himalayas, there have been different historical notions forever of people being reported of teleportation, of levitation. All that stuff is true. All of that stuff is coming soon for all of us. We are going to transcend the physical laws that we're in now, and it's a slow matter of time. As we access these higher energies and higher states of mind, we will start to do things like teleport and levitate. Collectively, the reality that we're in, people will not accept that. But once we begin to create our reality strong enough where we can ignore the outside reality, we will start to see things like that happen. I strongly believe it. We're on the cusp of that stuff happening now. And I think it's all going to be because of spiritual reasons. Let's see what else we got here. FBI says you guys are overanalyzing everything. Your brain is playing tricks with you and you think it's enlightenment. And I tell the FBI, you're probably right. But I've never met somebody that I truly felt was enlightened that thought he was enlightened. When you are enlightened, there is no doubt about your enlightenment. My overanalysis is absolutely right. My purpose in life has been to read and look at as much information as possible, and you can criticize it, but that's just me. And so as a result of pulling in all of this information, of course, I've gone through periods of overanalysis. That is part of the spiritual path. And the letting go of that is also part of the spiritual path. But when I tell other people that they're overanalyzing, then probably I might be wrong because I don't actually know what's going on. But we all go through a period of overanalyzing things. And I think that's totally natural. But for me, my overanalysis has given me analysis that has helped. Let's see what else we got here. Best exercise to make my imagination stronger. Darlene, this might be the best question. What is the best exercise if you want to make your imagination stronger? Your imagination can be enhanced once you start to create. So the first exercise, and I'll try to give you a couple here that have helped me. But the first exercise is I find with people that are just, they don't accept the creative part of themselves. And don't ever tell anybody, I don't create, I'm not an artist. So you need to enter into a period of creativity. I talk about this on a couple of my videos, but I give you a challenge. For 30 days, just create something every day. It can be a stick figure. It can be, you can cook a new dish. It can be the most tiny, minor thing. But create something. Create a song. Write a poem. And once you do it every single day, your mind will start to create. That's when the imagination, for me, was activated. The next step that I would recommend, by doing that, by the day 30, you're going to create a piece of art. If you look around this room, a lot of the art that I have here is stuff that I created by doing those type of things. But once you do that, start creating a journal and just free flow with your imagination. Whatever comes up, don't judge it. Go through and write all the different things that come to you. Create access to your imagination. Don't stifle it. And we're all artists. That's why we're here. This whole idea and belief is important to understand, because I meet so many people that say, yeah, I'm just not very creative. And that is not true. You created your reality that you're in now, and you're creating it every second. All right, what do we got here? All this alone time for COVID-19 is making people either crazy or creative. I'm loving the solitude. Check out, if you get a chance, my video, The Loneliness of Awakening. But I promise you 100% that people are awakening so much faster, so much more right now because of what's going on. Take the isolation that you're in now and use it to your advantage, because I promise you there are things that you can do, there's things that you can create, and there's places that you can go within that will take you beyond anything that you could imagine. This aloneness is wonderful. You are alone anyway. The whole universe is yours. But this time that you spend, you're never alone. We're all with you. The universe is one. But when you go through this process, you're going to awaken to so many different things. All of the great spiritual leaders, Jesus, Buddha, all of them go through a period of solitude. And we're being forced into the same period of solitude. And we're going to walk out of this with all these Christ-like figures that have walked out of 40 days and 40 nights. They're going to access their inner consciousness. They're going to access their higher self. I'm so excited to see the fruits of this, because so many people will be forced to awaken to who they are. They can't help it. Once you look in the mirror long enough, you will see the light behind your eyes, and it's going to be amazing, and I'm so excited for it. So let's see what else we got. I'm just getting impatient. When will she come to me? I get it. I understand what you're saying. Sometimes it seems like it takes a long time. When you imagine that love in your life, make sure that you're not imagining that it's a struggle. That's the only thing that I've seen with people that I have tried to help, that are trying to find that specific person that they want, is that they have been taught their whole lives that the relationship has to be a struggle, that they have to go through an obstacle course. So if you're thinking that, you got to figure out a way to change that particular belief. But don't create too much importance on the timing of it, but just accept the idea that love is easy and fast and quick. But most importantly, oftentimes when I talk with people that are waiting for somebody to come into their life, it's because they have not taken any action themselves. They're waiting for something magical to happen, when it's possible the other person is on the other line waiting, just sitting there waiting for you to call. Sometimes it's just all you have to do is call them or text them, and they'll be like, sure, I would love to see you. Let's talk. How are you doing? So I've literally seen people that are waiting, for the other person to, and they're saying, well, Brian, I don't know what's going on. They're not coming to me. And that's because you need to take a symbolic action. If you truly believe in yourself enough that you want to do this, don't wait. And I'm talking to women out there. If you're doing as your gender role is that you don't want to take some action, that you're waiting for the man, you're wrong. You are just as powerful as us, and you can take any action that you want. Take some kind of symbolic action, and you'll notice things start to happen. Create the cause and effect flow so that the relationship that you want begins to stir and come into your reality in the way that you want. All right, what do we got? Deborah, we are the moment in history where the whole world gets to wake up. It's everybody's time. Just stay in this state of acceptance. Oh, yes, I agree. We're in that moment in history. There's definitely, it feels, what we're going through right now, we're going to remember it. We're going to remember it like after 9/11. This is, even though it seems boring right now, you're going to look back on this. Times are intense. And so it is. It's an interesting time. I'm excited about it. Vivian asks, how can I know I am awakening? If you are looking for some particular sign or something like that, then oftentimes I've met people that are awakening and they don't know it. Don't look for one magical thing to happen. Oftentimes you're going to look back several months and say, wow, I have already awoken. That's pretty amazing. So just keep on your daily habit with an intention to awaken. Align yourself with the universe in the way that you want. Imagine lovingly for others, because I have often found that doing that will enhance your ability to awaken. And you'll know when you awaken, when you compare your state of mind to what it was previously. Oftentimes people that are awoken do not know. And the reason is that they have completely lost the former state. The non-awakened state is gone, and that's part of the process. So don't expect some magical lightning to come out of nowhere and then some angels to come down and sing to you that you're awoken. You will know. And if you don't know, you'll look back on it. Just keep on your daily process. You're creating a painting of an incredible life, and it's just one stroke at a time. Let's see. Shveti Betty, sorry if I got that wrong. Shveta from FB, what is your favorite way to ensure your mental diet supports your self-concept? I check in every hour, tell myself I am God. It's constant. When I talk about mental diet, I'm constantly looking at what my thought patterns are, what's coming up in my thoughts. Thank you so much, Mercy K. I appreciate that. So I'm always thinking about what my thoughts are. And if I have opposing thoughts, I immediately try to say something to vanquish it. That's one of the first things. I do believe part of the mental diet is what our surroundings that we create. So I'm not watching a lot of news. When I'm on Facebook, if I see people that constantly post negative news, I'm going to block them. And that's part of the mental diet. Everybody has their own journey for that. It's a huge part of the awakening process. There's no correct way for the mental diet. But Neville Goddard is always giving great examples. And the best is to live in the end where the wish is fulfilled. And that's the best place to be. Let's see what else we got. Thank you, Mercy. I appreciate that. Deborah Haley says, I disagree. There's no mistaking it. Yes, in many cases, an awakening cannot be mistaken. What I'm trying to say is I get a lot of people that I feel have awoken, but they're expecting something that's not going to happen. Yes, in many cases. For instance, when my third eye opened, there was no doubt about it. Dr. Joe talks about there is no doubt about it. When you read his Becoming Supernatural, when you read other authors, they're going to tell you that you're going to know it. And I'm trying to talk to that group of people that awakes and they don't really know it, because I do think that there's a subsector that happens to. Yes, there are cases of awakening, obviously, 100%, where you know it. But I see people that have awoken all the time and they're not completely aware of it, if that makes sense. Let's see what we got. Why do you think we haven't manifested ourselves out of this situation? Crystal Enlightened? Crystal, I believe that the situation that we're in is a part of our imagination. we imagine the situation that we're in. It's been our fantasy forever. I own a bookstore. I've been reading books forever. And for literally 30 years, people have been writing post-apocalyptic fiction all the time. Imaginal acts become facts. All of these writers, people reading these books, we have an entire world of people that are imagining in fantasies of post-apocalyptic nightmares all the time. And so what we're seeing is we have a subtle one right now. All of the things are happening for a reason. I think there's multiple reasons that this has happened, and we're imagining our way out of it right now. And part of what's happening is this virus is amplifying our awareness of the power of our minds over reality. And I really want to get this message across. I say it all the time. But what I really want to see is that we are coming out of this. When we come out of this, we're going to realize, at least enough of us, the people that are watching this, enough people are going to be aware that we can control the reality of this globe right now. Once we're powerful enough, a small group of us can. And so we can subvert all the fear in the world, and we can start to pull people like a magnet. We can pull people like a tide as we start to imagine a loving universe and really understand and accept the power of our imaginations. Then we will fix all of this stuff. It doesn't matter what happens. It will end up being to our advantage. Everything that's happening is to our advantage. And we know now, we've been learning all this time about the power of our minds, and now we get to really see it. All right. Let's see. Eric Matthew says, what are your thoughts on the moon? I had a vivid dream I was in the future, and it was broken up in a few huge chunks in space. The moon is totally fascinating to me. Absolutely fascinating. Of course, I've seen Cosmic Disclosure, where I know they talk about there might be bases on the moon. And that certainly is a possibility. What's fascinating, just as somebody that is awed by the universe, is how important the moon is to the development of life on this earth. It gives us an additional light source, controls the waves. Maybe the moon is empty. Maybe it's not super fascinating. Of course, if the moon was broken up, like you said in a dream, I honestly think your dream might be symbolic of something else when you really think about it. The moon represents a part of your psyche, and perhaps when you look at that dream, it's a part of your psyche that had been broken up. But I could talk about the moon forever. I think it's fundamentally part of the reason why we have such incredible life on this planet. Plants can grow from moonlight. And so it's just one of those things. I could talk about it. We can go on a whole, we could talk about that forever, but I'm super fascinated by that. Let's see what else we got. Shveti Bediet, thank you so much. A technical question. Does our belief in an existing system, i.e. scientifically proven diet, mean we hook our belief in the entirety of the system, even if we do not know the full nitty-gritty? That's a good question. Possibly. I don't think I could give you an exact answer, but I do think that idea systems tend to have more to it, very much like a pendulum. And so when we believe in the idea, it carries a system around it, a system of reality creation. And we attach ourselves to the full circumference of all the things that go with it. So you might be onto something there. Absolutely. We need to monitor our beliefs. And when we see that a belief system that we had has underlying assumptions that can work against us, you got to be aware of that. There's a part of me that believes that whatever you believe in is true, and that all things are true, and that there are no contradictions. And so you got to be careful about whatever belief system that you have. And certainly when we believe in some certain scientific processes now, we are limiting what realities that we can have in our future. Let's see here. So many, I've never seen so many. I'm honored by everybody leaving messages. Thank you so much. I love you all. Let's see what else. What is my opinion on the black hole in the sun? Jasmine asks. So I'm not aware of there being a black hole in the sun. I've seen on Cosmic Disclosure them going in through sunspots to the center of the sun, if that's true. But I'd love to talk about black holes. If anybody checks out my black hole meditation, obviously that's not the most popular one, but when you read Ra, when you read the Law of One, It's just so fascinating, this idea that the black hole is the closest in the third density that we get to seeing a physical manifestation of God. As Sadhguru also explains, that something always comes from nothing. When the universe probably comes from a black hole, it's likely that the universe is a reflection of on the back of a black hole. And so black holes fascinate me, and I have found some power in meditating on the black hole and actually traveling through black holes. But that's probably for another subject. But I'm super fascinated by that. I do believe that black holes can be intelligent. They are intelligized versions of God, and are part of that whole system that's talked about in the Law of One. Let's see. Nikita, I've seen 3 large moon-like white circles traveling to the right side of the moon with my peripheral vision, but when I looked right at the moon, I couldn't see them. I think I'm like everybody. I've seen UFOs, and then I didn't know if it was, and I saw lights, and was that a ship? Was that something? And if anybody knows me, I'm a gigantic science fiction fan, so I would love to see a UFO. I know my boy Brian, who's on here, has seen a UFO, and so I'm super jealous. Whenever I meet somebody that has seen an unidentified flying object, I'm jealous, but I really haven't seen one like I want to, and so I want to see one, of course. That would be great. Please talk about stopping time. Very cool. You know, that's something that Neville, as I've been doing these lectures, we've had a couple of really interesting lectures where Neville has talked about stopping time. There's a Q&A session where he talks about going into a train station and stopping time, walking around, and everybody having time stopped. And then he was animating all of the people, and then he talks about walking into another scene where everybody in the restaurant and the bird in the air is all frozen in time. So this may have been Neville moving to a higher level of power and understanding the power of his time. I do think there's something to it. I've always been fascinated by that. One of my only fiction books I tried to write was a book about somebody that could stop time. So, but as a meditation exercise, it's really powerful, and I include this in the storytelling meditation. The idea that you imagine what the scene that you want to manifest, but freeze it in time. Walk around with everything frozen, and then make it perfect, and then animate it. So it doesn't have to necessarily be true that you're stopping time. We can talk about time. I have a time travel meditation, and we can talk about all the different things with time. We can go on forever about that. But in terms of stopping time, the thing I'm most interested in is the technique that Neville uses, because I do think it's a really great technique when you try to imagine the reality that you want to fulfill. Let's see what we got. Talk about the orgasm while meditating. Let's just be clear. I think one of the most powerful energies is the orgasm. It goes through history. We've had sex magic that's talked about all the way back with Aleister Crowley. The orgasm is creative. It's one of the most creative forces of energy that you can have in the universe. We create life with it. So what Neville is doing is using the idea of the orgasm, not necessarily having an orgasm, but I tell you, I promise you that you should look at the process of creating reality very much like an orgasm. It's an explosion of energy. And the energy, the sexual energy, is obviously one of the core energies. We can go on about no-fap and all of that, but understand that the sexual energies are a particular kind of energy in your body, and you should take advantage of that, and that the process of imagining is orgasm-like. You're actually sending a sperm into another reality, and you are enabling it like you're birthing it, and it's very much like that. So the analogy of the orgasm is good. Let's see what else we got. Hey Mariana, happy to see you too. Let's see. Do I have any info on the asteroid? No, Susie, I don't have any info on the asteroid. Mrs. Scott, Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches about the pineal gland activation, brain orgasm. Yes, I do think there's some relationship with the orgasm and the brain. All I can tell you is, if you have a partner that is cool with you, you can utilize the time that you have sexually to create and amplify 4 or 5 times more energy than you normally would. I don't think I'll create a meditation for that. That's something that you would learn on your own, but I will tell you that I recommend it. Let's see what we got here. What is the other side of the black hole? Good question. I think when they look at maps of the universe, they're starting to see that the black holes connect, so that they're like an underlying river. If you imagined like the water system under the earth. So part of me thinks that a lot of these black holes connect, that God is the black hole, that behind the black hole, that's God. And what's behind God? Everything and nothing. So that's my best explanation of that question. Let's see. I had probably skipped. I'm going to scroll up and see if I missed one from up top. Let's see here. What about subliminals before sleep? I heard theta wave is best to reprogram. And asking in the form of why am I so, and fill in the blanks. There are specifics to the program and shift. So asking about subliminals in sleep. If you have been to my channel, you know that I'm a big fan of sleep meditations and subliminals in sleep. It's something that you can use to hack your subconscious. It's really effective. If you go and listen to Feeling is the Secret, Neville Goddard is talking about the subconscious is really what you're trying to connect with. The subconscious is the thing that has the power. And so when you're falling asleep, especially right before you go to sleep and right when you wake up and while you're asleep, what information that you have coming in can be very powerful. I have had friends that fall asleep to the television that's on with the news. And how horrifying is that? All of this bad news, and they wake up and they're depressed, wonder why. So if you can set up certain things that you really want to program into your mind to say repeatedly or just a little bit while you're sleeping, everybody's different. Some people can't do 8-hour sleep meditation, but some people can. I find it very powerful. As for the theta, yes, when you go to sleep, you end up in delta, which is very impressionable, and so is theta. You're going to go through a theta to delta whenever you go to sleep. You can induce this while awake through certain kinds of music, or the way the music sounds. This whole idea that theta is specific to a kind of music, as Brian will tell you, it's also the feeling of the music that is also important. But yes, what you want to find a way to access theta. There's lots of different ways you can measure your own brain waves. I use Muse sometimes, but you're always going to kind of know you're going into theta as you go to sleep, while you're asleep, and when you wake up. When you sleep, you're going to be in delta and theta. So you want to be very careful with what you're saying to your mind at that time, because it is truly a way to hack your subconscious mind. And over time, it's amazing the ways that you can change. You may have some aspect of your personality that you wanted to change, that you've had to struggle with. Maybe it's an addiction or a belief pattern. And then you start to play these things over a given period of time. Sleep meditations do work over a given period of time. And you'll start to see the changes in the way that you look at the world. It's very powerful. It's been powerful for me. So that's the best I can say for that. Let's see here. What else do we got? Yes, something wonderful is happening now. You know, I just finished the Wonderful 21. And I want everybody to join me on this. What a great time to do it. It's so easy to be negative right now. So I will tell you the results of what I just did. I have three meditations on my channel. I have Something Wonderful is Happening Now, a morning meditation that's designed to prime you in the morning, to raise your energies. I have Isn't It Wonderful? It's a wonderful meditation using Neville's technique, saying Isn't it wonderful? And then a sleep meditation, something wonderful is happening now. So I did these 3 meditations for 21 days. In the morning, I would do the morning meditation. In the middle of the day, I would do the Isn't It Wonderful? I would play it in the background. And then at night, I just play it as I was going to sleep. Even if I played it really quietly. And then what happened was I accessed the energy of wonderful. When Neville talks about love, when Neville talks about that God is light, God is love, God is also wonderful, and wonderful is a specific energy. That's the best I can tell you. I want you to have wonderful energy coming into your life. What will happen is, as you start to do this, you'll start to look around the corner and look for something wonderful. You'll start to, when you open up your cabinet, you're gonna, something wonderful is gonna happen, and you start expecting wonderful things to happen, and then all of a sudden you have wonderful things happening. It's a way of turning your mindset, and it almost creates beyond just a specific visualization that you're working on, an expectation that starts to occur, and you'll tune into the energy of wonderful. So I suggest try it even for a couple of days. If you're quarantined right now and you have some extra time, tune into the energy of wonderful. And that's my cat PJ, so you can say hello. But let's see, what did we got? Yes, Isn't It Wonderful? I'm so happy you guys like that one. The music turned out great. Isn't It Wonderful is particularly good because it's a combination of songs by Omniverse that just is dreamy, and I'm a huge fan of his music, and that's one of the fun things. Let's see. Chris C asks, thanks so much for all your work, Brian. I was watching yet another Neville Goddard video, and while drifting to sleep, I felt the serpent wiggling. Funny part, I was just focusing on your words. Oh, yeah, the interesting thing that that Neville talks about is the serpent, which is clearly the Kundalini. And that is what I'm trying to do with the chakra meditations. But it maybe goes beyond that. There's certainly a circulating energy in your body that acts very much like a serpent. So, see what else we got. Most fascinating live stream on YouTube. That's right. 244 watching. Love it. I'm so happy. This is the first live I've ever done, so didn't know quite what to think. Let's see here. Any root energy? I don't see too many questions. Please define core energy, Lionel asks. So one of the interesting aspects when you start to study metaphysics is different energies. So one thing I talk about in the book is different energies. There's not just one energy. There's different kinds of energies. There's the energy of love. There's, like I talked about, there's the energy of wonderful. And there are certain energies in particular that are more powerful in helping you to create your reality. And those are core energies. And it's kind of hard to define. I do think that I couldn't give you a specific word for it. It's obviously source, but even source has variations of different energy. So the best thing I can recommend is check out my episode on energy, and I can try to go into the different kinds and levels of energy. There's levels of energy, there's connections to energy, there's different dynamics and variables to it, and energy is a big thing. I have a chapter in this book on why energy matters. So to know more about energy, I read that chapter. I try to do my best to kind of go through what I had learned about energy. Let's see here. I'm sure I missed a cool question. No questions here. So Chris, you meant physically. Maybe I missed the question that you're referring to. Monica says, I've heard that our galactic family is coming very soon and present to all humans. Is this true? Monica, if I knew, I'd tell you. Oh man, that would be so cool if our galactic family showed up. Obviously, if you see how we've acted during this crisis, I don't think we're ready. But if you think so, then I'm down like that. So the best one, 11/11/2011 says, what about oracles and predicting future as in everyone has a destined fate in life. It just depends if you will ride in first or second class till you get there. The best, I disagree. Check out my episode on the mirror makers or the episode on the space of variations. You do not have a set future. You have multiple futures. They may be set. They're set in stone. They're scripts that are designed for you, but not one. What you're doing when we're talking about it on this channel is you're choosing one of those scripts. And you find that in your imagination, through meditation, through your daily actions, and the way that life unfolds for you. But there is not one. And it's very important, as Neville Goddard teaches, as Vadim Zeland teaches. I try not to look into oracles too much because those can create reality. When you see predictions that say this is going to happen, it creates the reality. And Vadim Zeland says something interesting for certain kind of predictions. Even just barely hearing about it, you'll start to see your reality change. So I try not to there's obviously truth in oracles. There's no doubt there's truth. They've been shown to be the truth, but we don't know if the oracle created the truth. Obviously, we're accessing imagination. And if you see something happening in the future, yes, that's a version that's happening in the space of variations, but it may not be the only future. And I don't want my reality to be created by somebody telling me what's going to happen in my future. I create my own reality, and that's for everything. Nobody will give me a prediction of my future because I predict my own future, and that has been the key for me, and it will be empowering to you. Gary Bowman asks, have you ever seen fractals looking exactly like stained glass windows one would see in a church? Gary, yes, I have. Energy does look like that. And if you look at Teal Swan's artwork, she's really good at drawing energy. You'll notice the same thing. It looks like stained glass. So when you tune into energy and start to see energy, it is a fractal nature, but it's like windows. So you can see separations in the different quadrants of energy. And so when, like, for instance, when you see the energy of financial freedom, there's a specific segment of it, and it's made up of components that do resemble windows in my own experience. So that's cool that you've seen that before. Let's see. How to connect to the energy of forgiveness. Forgiveness is necessary for manifestation, Vivian. Good question. And I think that it's absolutely 100% necessary. Number one thing is that you have to forgive yourself. Forgiveness is about forgiving other people. And forgiveness is also about forgiving yourself. So I can only tell you in my own case, I had people come into my house and try to kill me and shoot at me. And if I had held on to this anger for what they had done, I would never be here. And there's so many things that would have happened. I had events happen in my life, in my family, with friends. And it's when you have something happen, when somebody hurts you, when somebody does something that you don't want, you can hold on to that. And when you hold on to that, you end up creating a reflection where you continue to see more of that, people doing more of the same. And you also, it becomes a restriction on your energy that you're bringing in. So Ho'oponopono is so important. Sometimes just saying, I'm sorry, the generic sorry is important because you have things that you haven't forgiven yourself or others about. When you know specifically, forgiveness is so important. There's a program I talk about in the book, 40 Years of Zen. And what they do is they will look at your brainwaves and they will test to see what your brainwave level is. And if you bring up something that you haven't forgiven somebody about, your brain waves will spike. And so when they look at people that have meditated for 40 years, one of the things that they've done is learned how to forgive. So if you want to speed up the process towards enlightenment and manifestation or whatever it is, then what you need to do is learn to forgive. And it's not about the other people. It's about yourself. Because once you do that. Now, let's talk about forgiveness the way that Neville Goddard speaks about it. Once you understand his perspective, it changes. It's a game changer. When somebody has done something wrong to you, then it's not them. It's the state that they're in. So imagine that the person that has wronged you is not, they're just in a state. And you can forgive them by imagining with your own power them in another state. That is forgiveness. That's the forgiveness that Neville's talking about. And Neville had this belief, when you help others, you help yourself. And so that kind of forgiveness is just as powerful. And so both levels of forgiveness, forgiving others, changing, imagining what they're doing differently, that's also a form of forgiveness. Marie says, give us guidance for this universal meditation on the weekend, please. No guidance, just join with everybody in that meditation, and I'll be there. And I'm trying to do any group meditations. There's a group that's doing my coronavirus meditation every single night at 9 p.m. Eastern time. If you're on my group, I provided a link for that. But I do think that we're going to see the power of our group meditations right now. And if we can continue to do these group meditations, I think that we are changing the planet every time we do it. I personally believe that because of simultaneous time, that when we do these meditations, it is a group meditation every time. If we make it our focus and put the energy towards it, I think it's very powerful, and I'll definitely continue to do it. How do you connect? The best one says, how do you connect to the energy of wealth and then to experience wealth in 3D here? Check out my episode on prosperity consciousness. I have a chapter in the book that is called, if you check out the book, in particular, this is the prosperity revolution. And I go over several different ways into energy and also into connecting to that wealth energy, into that wealth mindset. There's a whole bunch of different things that you need to know. They've been talked about forever by scholars like Joseph Murphy and Napoleon Hill, and they're fundamental concepts. But what you're doing is you're focusing on the right thing. Wealth is an energy. And when you focus on that, when you start to understand that and become aware of it, create a prosperity mindset through a variety of different actions, then you will start to see it manifest in your life 100%. Sometimes it's the hardest and easiest thing to change your reality with. Money is. And it's part of the whole process. And I try to talk about that as best for what I can teach in this book. Let's see. Okay, Deborah, I'll try to do more live. It's a first. I've never done it before. So the Joe Craft, what if you had a choice? The choice is, would you heal someone that you don't know? And would you? Joe, absolutely. First of all, everybody is you. So when you heal somebody, you're healing yourself. That's a hard understanding to come to, but when Neville teaches about imagining lovingly for others, you're being selfish when you do it. I want to heal as many people as I can, just like Jesus did. The reason is, when you start imagining to help others, like in the book of Job, when Job has all these terrible things happen to him, when he starts praying and imagining for others, is when his world changed for himself. And so imagine it visually, like you have power coming into you, but only a little bit. But when you imagine for others, then more power comes in through you so that you can help those others. So every time you pray for someone or you do something to help somebody else, more energy comes to you. And that same energy is still flowing when you decide that you want to manifest something for yourself. So when I try to help someone else out, I'm doing it for selfish purposes. But by doing it, it's effective. So I absolutely, please, I want to help as many people as I can. I want to imagine lovingly for everybody. I try to imagine lovingly when anybody asks. I promise I spend a moment and I really do imagine for them in the best way that I can. Let's see. Good vibes and love to everyone. Good vibes and love to you, Crystal. Yes, I have books. Bob said, I do. This is my first. And I tell you what, this is my manifestation. This is my baby. This is my dream. I love books so much. It's my thing. It's my passion. I've held so many books. I love to hold the book. But my dream was, I want to publish a book. But I own a company. I'm the CEO of a company. I'm working all the time. And so the idea of me writing a book's very difficult. My time was not, I didn't have it. But I said, okay, I want to write because I have knowledge I want to give. And I don't want to just keep it to myself. So Steve Barnes, a mentor of mine, just suggested, write one sentence a day. And that's how I started it. And I saw the fruition of my thoughts because I kept on imagining holding this book in my hand. And so I would have had a big party today. Today's the day my book came out, but now my party is with you guys. So thank you. And I'm excited about it. It's super exciting. It's my own first book. I'm sure it's not perfect, but I tried to put as much of my love in there, and I hope that you get some of that from that. Hey, Del, good to see you. Thank you for supporting me all this time, for sure. Hey, Raven, appreciate that. Let's see. Queen of Creation. I've tried to imagine for others when I'm out and about, when I see homeless people on the sidewalks, but it is a bit difficult because it is a passing and fleeting moment. You make a good point. I would love to compare notes on how to properly imagine. For instance, somebody asks me for money. I'll give them some money, right? But I know that's not enough. And there's always a part of me that says, okay, I'm going to imagine lovingly for them. So I know what they look like. And I imagine them smiling, happy, driving a car, or being given a job. I try to imagine somebody saying, I've gone through several different things. And so I would love, put in the comments, if you have a suggestion for when you were talking to somebody that's homeless or they're struggling. I'm constantly experimenting with different things. One of the great teachings that Neville gives also, you may not be seeing the effects of your imagination on others. That's totally what Jesus went through. Neville explains that when Jesus helped out, when he would help out the sick, and I think he helps out the lepers, 9 out of 10 of them just went away. One of them came and said, thank you. You're going to have 9 of 10 of them that are never going to know it was you. And so don't sit there and think, oh, all my imagining hasn't worked. It works. But I'm still learning. And so if you guys have suggestions, particularly when you see someone really struggling that's on the street, what should we be imagining for them? How can we do it? Let's figure out a good method so that we can do it properly. Let's see what we got here. Sheena says, can you explain parallel universe and we as spiritual beings moving in spiral stairways, as said by Neville Goddard? I haven't gotten to the lecture where he's mentioned spiral stairways, but he does always talk about everything as a spiral. Our energies are moving in a spiral. When you look at diagrams of us moving up through consciousness, it is not a straight line. We are moving through a spiral. And so our shift into density is not just we're in 4th density. It's 3rd density moving in a spiral up to 4th density. It seems like our transitions from different densities and whatever we're moving through tends to be in the shape of a spiral. And this is talked about in the book of Job, when Job finally talks to God and the whirlwind comes into him. And it's, the spiral is mentioned many times by Neville Goddard as well. All right, what do we got? Can we do a group meditation? Can everyone here imagine you happily married? Vivian, I will imagine you happily married, I promise. I don't know if we're going to have a group meditation just for you, but we might have a group meditation for everybody that wants to get married. I will definitely consider that in the future. Joe Kraft, what would you do? Option 1, giving money someone donated to a hospital, or option 2 is giving a donation to a homeless person. Excuse my cough. First of all, whatever I give is not as important as what I think. So I will, right now, what I'll do is I always follow my heart. So if I'm donating, I'm donating. I'm always looking for ways to help out. And so I follow what my heart tells me to do. I go with what my heart tells me to do. And that's always going to be the best way for me. But I always will spend the coin of heaven, which is my thoughts. And I'll imagine lovingly for the hospital and for the homeless person at the same time. Let's see what we got. I've got to go put on one of your sleep meditations because it's almost midnight. Well, good night, Susan. Yeah, I'll do a training sometime on how I do my sleep meditations. I use a sleep mask. I don't know what you guys use. I generally have 3 or 4 loaded up, and I have 3 or 4 loaded that are charged. But I'd love to know what you guys do. I try to do my meditation so you can listen to them out of both ears. but you can listen to them at the same time. But I'd love to know what you guys are using. So, Queen of Creation, there's a part in the Bible where it says we can't eat certain unclean animals. Any idea if and how Neville interprets this? I don't think he mentions anything about it. He does say there are parts of the Bible that are inspired and then parts that are not. Those particular portions are in the Old Testament, and those were done back in a time when certain animals were dangerous to eat. Not as much now. There were more health warnings, not necessarily warnings against sin, but I don't think that Neville ever deals with that. That's a great question. I'd love to know what he thinks about that. Let's see. Brian, could you explain the 3.5-year period after awakening that Neville discusses? What happens and what is the significance of that time frame? You know, I've read the lecture that you're referring to as 1,260 days, which he refers to in the Bible, this process of awakening, which can be measured by 1,260 days. And the best that I can say is I've reached out to everybody that's listening. I want to know, has anybody had these experiences? And I want to read, has anybody that's been following Neville had these experiences? Because he's literally giving a structure to the awakening over a 3.5-year period of time with certain things happening at certain times. And that structure really lays out some of the principles. And I honestly don't know what to think. It resonates with me as if there's truth in it, but I personally have not experienced it, and I just don't know. So Black Betty says 1 hour usually. Yeah, we're over an hour, so if you guys want me to keep going, I will. Let's see. Crystal Enlightenment. Jesus says that all animals were clean. If God made them, they are God. He says this obviously in the New Testament. Yes, that's true. I agree. Yes, Neville talked about being a vegetarian and practicing celibacy as the state of John. So when we're in the state of John, we try to be perfect. We try to say things perfectly. We're celibate. We eat the right things, and we will not earn our place into our way into heaven, as he describes, by being in that state. I know a lot of vegetarians that are very healthy. I think it's absolutely a great way of eating. I personally love meat, but I know that there's a part of me that wants to have a vegetarian diet. And when I have done it, it has been much better. And it's something I'm kind of moving towards slowly and carefully. Let's see. We got God blessings to you, Yuri. Joe Kraft asks, do I think that life is a long dream? Do I think that life is a long dream? I do think that we are dreaming, both in our dream state and now. Neville Goddard talks about that when he talks about he wakes in me. And we are dreaming. And so one of the things when you access lucid dreams, you're actually learning how to become lucid while waking. Because it's different than what we think of as a dream, but it's dream-like. We're in a script. We're just doing these things. It just comes to us. Have you ever driven to the grocery store and 15 minutes go by and you don't remember? You were in that script. You were dreaming. So becoming more aware in the moment, you break those scripts, but we are dreaming, and becoming aware of that is a big deal, because once we become aware of that, then we can really use it to have fun in this reality. Sheena says, so then can we fit spiral stairways with parallel universes, or is it a huge topic? Sheena, I think it's related. I don't think it's important, but it may be a way to visualize the way to move from one parallel reality to another. I'm not entirely sure. Mercy K, yes, the book is going to be on Audible. I've already recorded it. They just take longer. So in 2 to 4 weeks, hopefully sooner, I promise. There's unfortunately no music, but it's an 8-hour book, and I hope that you love it. I loved recording it. Dave says, do we all have a mission to be here at this time? We chose it, right? Dave, it feels like it. I really profoundly know for sure that I have a mission. And I look back on my whole life, everything was set up for me. The way I acquired information, the way I would read information, everything that I was put through, I was set up to gather information together and disseminate it That's been my purpose. And when I talk to people and really get to know them, you can kind of start to see the purpose that they have. And I think we all have a purpose. We may have multiple purposes. And in fact, I have a section in the book on finding your purpose, because it is a part of what we are doing. When we find our purpose and our mission, that's when the magic happens. That's when I see miracles start to happen, when we access this. So it's very important. Oh, Joe, thank you so much. You're the best. Joe asks, how to crank up the intensity of lukewarm desires. I want to be joyful, rich, and create great works, but remaining small still has a strong pull. I get that. Anytime that you have a huge emotional event happen, try to create from there. So if you have something, it's a big a football game or something you're excited and jumping up and down in that emotion, utilize those moments to force it. Also, as I learned in neurolinguistic programming, when you reach a certain emotional state and you add layers to it, try to amplify it. Do your best to turn it up. If you're feeling great and you're putting yourself in a feeling state that's super powerful, try to imagine a dial and then turning it up and cranking it up. Just constantly imagining magnifying the emotional state. And that should pull you out. But part of what you say in your question, remaining small, has a pull. So there's some part of you that wants to remain small. You got to deal with that. There's a part of you that is not allowing you to feel those emotions. So allow yourself to feel those emotions. Allow yourself. And then you will start to feel them. It's that simple. You can have whatever you want. Just allow it. I give you permission. You give yourself permission. You can do it. Marcus, thank you so much. You asked, someone attacked me and is facing charges. When I think of them in jail, is this not harmonious? What's a better way of thinking about it? Marcus, this exact same happened to me. Somebody attacked me. When you read the first chapter in my book, I woke up and somebody had been robbing my house, and I opened my porch door, and there was somebody standing there holding a gun, and they pulled the trigger. I turned and ran. The bullet bounced off my back in a miracle. I can't explain it. But it's very important to understand that my reaction afterwards was absolutely important. I realized that it wasn't their fault. They were in a state when they did it, and the person that did this to you, they were just in a state. And I tried to go through a process of understanding where they were struggling for money. They were with some kids. They were on drugs. There's all kinds of, and I have truly forgiven them, and I've imagined them being okay. And it was very freeing of me. I understand where you're coming from, but you want to divorce the fear part of you and divorce the anger part of you. And whatever will happen for them that is best for them. But it's important for you because it's going to drag you down to forgive them and let it go. Forget about it. The best thing you can do is just never even think about it anymore. It's not important. It's some kind of reality that you created, but it doesn't have to be a part of your existence. You're going to reach a point where you don't even think about it anymore. It doesn't even matter. So, Neville wrote an entire book interpreting the Bible. Maybe I should order. Yes, Queen of Creation. I definitely want to read that one too. It's definitely later on the list. There's always this part of me when I do the Neville Goddard lectures. Do I want to do one? Because he has some that are not as biblical, and then some that are super biblical. And at the beginning, I've always tried to kind of stay away from too biblical. But the more I read it, the more I find that stuff interesting. So I'm definitely probably going to explore that too. Can I suggest a book that we can interpret Bible as Neville did? Neville is the best suggestion that I can give. I don't think that there's been, other than Blake, any other people that have really analyzed the Bible the way that Neville Goddard has. Chris C. says, how often, if at all, do you experience the bridge of incidents, things worsening before getting better? That's a good question. Oftentimes, my biggest manifestations have always happened with something that happened that seemed like at the beginning of the bridge of incidents, something seemed like it was working against me. I might lose the job. Something would work against it. And so it's very important. Some of the learnings I've had from reality transurfing is the advantage technique, and to filter everything that the world is taking advantage of you, that your reality is be creating to your advantage. And so when I've had those incidents happen, I've had that immediate thought, obviously something's happening to my advantage. And that has helped me out. Even if it wasn't true, if it was truly a terrible thing that happened, that immediate reaction that I had was just as important. Remember, sometimes your reactions are just as important as anything else. So assume that what is happening right now is to your advantage. It doesn't happen every time for a bridge of incidents, because I reached a point where I started to expect some bad thing happen. Like, bring it on. I want to manifest something. If that's what I have to, if something inconvenient is going to happen along the way, then bring it on. Because there was a part of me that said, I don't want to manifest because I'm going to have to move outside of my comfort zone. So as I have done that, less of that stuff has happened in my bridge of incidents. Let's see here. Joe said, Marcus and Brian, this happened to me, a home invasion with serious injury. Joe, get my book. I talk exactly how I get through it. If it happened to you, then you've attracted me for a reason. What I've gone through, I know what you're going through. Don't give in to the fear, man. This happened for a reason for you, and you can use it to as a benefit. It happened to your advantage. Lisa Marie, I agree. Forgive all. All healing is in the heart. What was the Neville book that explains the Bible, Leanna? That's a good question. I believe I think it's not Resurrection. I will have to get back to you. It might be the Seed Time and the Harvest. If anybody knows the most biblical analysis, put that in the comments so we can share that. JVF Mastering says, the backdrop people leaving now. We can never know, one of the saddest things for my backdrop people video, all the people that I was only a student when I presented that video. I don't necessarily believe in it, and it's not important. And I promise, if you're watching, that you're not the backdrop. The idea that did the backdrop leave? Maybe this virus, I don't know, but I just think the backdrop's interesting, but I'm not going to overanalyze it too much. It's not that big a deal. Let's see. Marl says, Brian, your meditations work for the stress knot I had in my neck shoulder. Oh, that's wonderful. That makes me so happy. Vivian says, Ho'oponopono is a prayer for healing. Yes, I love Ho'oponopono. Check out my videos on it. Definitely changed my life. It unlocked a part of me. And Amal says, do you need to reduce the importance? What are the methods you may apply to reduce importance? So importance is one of the really cool aspects of reality transurfing that over time you're going to find is incredibly effective and powerful. The reason is it's just part of your thought pattern. It really is. It's like mental karate. When you really want something, I know we've all been through it, then what happens is you just want it to happen so badly. You create this energy of not having it and pushing it away and putting it up on a pedestal. And just water always flows a certain direction. Energy always flows. And so when you create importance, you end up creating balancing forces that will work against you. And so what I have found is by reducing importance, you overcome these distortions in energy balance that happen as you go along. You can simply say it's not important. You can analyze when you add importance to things. There's a whole variety of different things. But overall, it's a good way to filter things. If you're thinking about something too much, just consciously try to say it's not as important. Obviously, some things are always going to be important. You have kids, they're going to be important. But don't over analyze it. Just use it as a mental component, mental karate, if you will, as a way of analyzing how much you're placing energy into a thought component so that it can flow towards what you want. All right, let's see what we got here. Yes, miracles are happening now, Lorianne, no doubt. Baby Boo Grace asks, how to deal with self-hatred. I know exactly what you're going through. I've been there. I've hated myself. I've hated myself so many times. And thank you so much, Ileana. That's so nice. So I understand. Check out the labyrinth, getting out of the insecurity labyrinth video that I made. It's a transurfing chapter, but it's a good way to deal with hating yourself. But I understand where you're coming from, and it's really important to find a way to love yourself. If you want to love somebody, the key is for you to love yourself. And so there's so many things that you can do. And as you meditate and get in touch with who you truly are and start to find your purpose, you'll start to love yourself and start to become grateful and start to look at things that are positive about yourself and really focus on those things. And so many different people have looked at this aspect. It's been written about in hundreds of books. So the idea, when you read about cybernetics, plastic surgeons have noticed doing a minor change on somebody can completely transform them. So if you can get out of that self-hatred, it's going to change you. Why do you hate yourself? Is it something that you haven't forgiven yourself for? What is it that you hate about yourself? I talk about that stuff in the book. That's a block. If it could be, you think that you're ugly. I promise you that you're not. Nobody here is ugly. I'm overweight. No, you're not overweight. Whatever it is, it's just a thought. And I promise you that you're beautiful, and no matter what you are, you're incredible and amazing, and I love you, and there's no reason for you to hate yourself. So become aware of it. They're just thoughts. Go to the inner core of who you truly are, and when you find that love, it's amazing. So you got the right idea. If you're aware of your self-hatred, that's a really good first step. That means you're moving towards something better. Let's see. Yes, staying near concrete makes a great point. Some Aaron Abke says, there's no learning to love yourself. There's just the awareness that you are love itself. Absolutely 100%. When you say love yourself, make sure that you're separating the ego. What may be going on is that the ego doesn't love itself, but there's a part of you that goes beyond your ego, and that part is pure love, is your godhood, is who you are, and that part, it's pretty hard to hate yourself. So there's a process of identification with your ego that's a part of that process. Let's see. Good night, Ginger. Thank you so much for sharing this time with us. Brian P., The Witcher is good. I recommend it. I enjoyed it. Love the series. Let's see. When we dream, are we tapping into alternate realities? And I say yes, as we understand from reality transurfing that when we dream, our soul is exploring the space of variations in all timelines. It can be going back in time and forward in time. It can be in timelines that are completely unrelated, but we are exploring different realities in that time. You can go crazy trying to analyze it because you don't know what your higher self or your soul is doing. It could be giving you messages. It could be your subconscious, but don't go crazy trying to analyze your dreams. Understand that you are exploring different spaces in the whole and vast space of variations. Brian, can you be in touch with Alba Weinman, who is a student of Dolores Canyon? Absolutely. I'll look that name up if I'm done. And I would love to talk to any students of Dolores Canyon. Tomorrow, got a new Dolores Canyon episode. It's called The Coming Shift. And it's some great stuff where she talks about what the coming shift actually means to the new earth. All right. Let's see what else we got. So we're probably getting close to where being done. I will write more books, I promise. So I promise it's something I absolutely want to do. Right now I'm working with Lawrence Watusi on a book I'm super excited about on open source spirituality. And that's the idea that spirituality can be open source, much like a computer, and that we can draw from multiple different various theories to create an open source spirituality. And I'm really excited to share that with you. That'll be one of the next projects. Also working on a project on Neville Goddard. I want to collect all of his first-person accounts so that we can create a personal timeline of his life from the different lectures. We'll see if we can do that. So, stay in your concrete. I woke up early before I closed my eyes, and I repeat, I love and approve myself. You don't feel it at first, but after 4 days, that's a great idea. If anybody wants to try that, that's a good technique. If you have hatred for yourself. Queen Mom, when I did your short Ho'oponopono, I found that I still felt guilty that I couldn't save my mother. Queen Mom, you're never. It's not perfect, and especially when it's family stuff, it's deep. And so one of the things that you're seeing is the power of Ho'oponopono, because it brings to the surface the things that you're not forgiving. So if you had not done that meditation, you might not have been aware of what was going on with your mother, or you might have been aware of it, but what it does is it brings the stuff to the surface. So you acknowledging that is a sign that it's working. Keep going. Just remember, as best you can, that your mother is okay. That, as Neville explains, your mother is on the next step towards on her journey, and that everything's okay. And don't feel guilty for it. It's part of our whole process. But I feel you, and I understand where you're coming from, because I've been there. Let's see. Frank is saying, no, Satan is a fallen angel. I'm not going to go into that. I talk enough. I have an episode of Dolores Cannon on Satan. And there's a whole line of thought that I can talk about, but the Bible is not saying what you think it's saying, and there's so much more to it. So I'm not going to, we'll save that for another time. Maybe we'll dedicate an episode and we can talk about the angels and Satan, because I've read all of the Apocrypha. I've read all of different literature, and I could talk to you about angels forever. Super fascinated by it. Also by researching the Golden Dawn. I kind of have an awareness of angels, and it's a lot more complicated than you think. And once you actually realize what a lot of it is, it would be mind-blowing. So where can we buy your book? You can buy it on Amazon right now. I'll maybe put a link on this when I'm done, when I edit this. Brian, should we take precautions during these times or go on about life like a normal day? That's what I do. Christina, it's all about your mindset. So I'm going to have a book I narrated coming up. Really powerful, I recommend, by Joseph Murphy, called How to Attract Money. And there's an example in that book. And I mentioned it on Facebook, if you're on Facebook. The idea is, there's a woman, right before the war, that was freaking out, and she went out and collected all the coffee that she could get, because she didn't, when they put her on restriction, she wasn't going to have enough coffee. And so she had this lack mindset. And so when she went to church, they stole all of her coffee and her jewels and more, because of this lack mindset that she had. And so all these people in the world that are buying toilet paper and things like that, it's crazy, because they're creating this lack mindset. So we do want to come from a place of abundance. Let's see here. Is your book available as an audiobook? Janet, yes, it's going to be an audiobook in 2 to 4 weeks. There's just a little bit of a delay. So, but I think we've gone for everything, and I will definitely do this again. I had so much fun. I love all of you guys more than you could imagine. Thank you for sharing this time with me. Thank you for the donations. And just check out my videos tomorrow and the next day. Feel free to let me know if you want me to imagine for you, and I promise that I will. All episodes of The Reality Revolution can be found at therealityrevolution.com. And welcome to The Reality Revolution, everyone. Thank you. Love you.